again, everybody. This is Robert Brighton, and welcome back to All That Glitters. Part 2 of our true crime investigation of the murder of little Marian Murphy in 1902 Buffalo. When we left off, Marian had gone around 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night to pick up some penny candy with a friend of hers at a nearby neighborhood candy store. After they got the candy, her little friend tricycles away on Marian's brother's tricycle, leaving Marian by herself. And that is the last time that anyone has ever seen Marian Murphy. She disappears, vanishes without a trace. The cops come, they don't do a whole lot. I'm sure a very sleepless night passes without Marian returning home. And first thing in the next morning, there's a knock at the Murphy door. They think it's the police. But they open the door and they find that it's not the police. It's actually a local young man, a 19-year-old fellow by the name of Lloyd Horn. Lloyd Horn's a bit of an odd duck. He's sort of an amateur wrestler. You know, he kind of goes around looking for fights and then gets people to bet on him and all this other stuff. So whatever, people do that, but still wasn't typical even then. And his family is like notoriously closed-mouthed about him. Like people would even ask, does Lloyd have a job? Because he still lived with his parents, which was unusual at 19 in those days. And they'd say, well, yeah, he has a job. And then they wouldn't say what it was. Really odd. Well, anyway, Lloyd shows up at the door and he says, I saw your daughter last night. Well, it's a little weird because word hasn't spread widely about Marian's disappearance. Now, it probably did get around in the neighborhood because the cops were probably poking around asking a few people questions. So Lloyd probably knew or could have known, but it's still kind of a weird thing to do, come up and knock on somebody's door and they're missing their kid. I saw your daughter last night. Well, do you know where she went? No, but I saw her outside the candy store on Malta Place. She was by herself. And she was crying bitterly. And of course, the Murphys said, well, did you say anything to her? Or did you ask her why she was crying or try to comfort her or whatever? And he said, no, I just wanted to let you know that I saw her and I think I know where she might have gone. Well, they're about to ask Lloyd where Marian might have gone when the cops show up. And Lloyd makes himself scarce. He disappears. Well, this is odd. I mean, even the cops have to notice that there's something kind of weird about that. So they go over and they talk to Lloyd's parents and Lloyd's not here. And and they repeat the same drill. Yeah, he's employed, but I don't know what he's doing. So anyway, and that's it. The cops sort of lose interest in Lloyd. And 2 weeks go by without any material leads in this case. Marian vanishes and she's gone for 2 weeks. Until one afternoon in Forest Lawn Cemetery in the northern part of Buffalo, several miles from the Murphy home, two boys are trying to scare away fishermen from a pond in the big cemetery. And they see something floating in the water. Of course, they're curious, as boys are, and so they fashion a string with a rock on it. They throw it over this item and they bring it toward them. They haul it in, hand over hand, and it turns out it's the wrapped up body of a little girl. Well, this little girl's been in the water for an awfully long time, so even when they take her to the morgue and they bring the Murphys in to identify her, it's very difficult. She's decomposed and bloated and all sorts of other nasty stuff, and they finally do identify the body because Marian had one little kind of like bent toe on one of her feet, and they recognized her by that. So here's little Marian Murphy, dead. Not just abducted, but dead. And oh, by the way, dead in a terrible way, the autopsy shows, because she'd been hog-tied, which means a rope or cord around your neck, and then tied around your feet, and your body's bent backwards like a bow. She'd been hogtied and strangled and raped. And her end was not an easy one. Let's just put it that way. I've read the autopsy report. It was not pleasant what happened to that little girl. Well, now, of course, the police can't claim that some relative came and took Marian off to Ohio or someplace, and they can't do anything about it. They have to look for a culprit because this girl has been murdered and violated, and there's nothing they can do to sweep it under the rug. So, when we come back, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the investigation, the official investigation into Marian Murphy's disappearance and murder. And then in our last part, I will tell you about my solution to this long unsolved case.